Welcome! I am so glad you're here. Why would we be discussing calming our inner critic? So many of us think that our inner critic keeps us motivated and working hard and reaching our goals. To a certain extent, that's true, and then at some point, it stops working. This is what we're going to cover. Resonance brought you here, meaning energy, something I've said, something you've seen, brought you here, watching this video. There's a good chance you need to calm your inner critic. How my experience can help you. The steps of transformation. Step 1, identifying your story. Step 2, your mind and body connection. Step 3, noticing incongruence. 4 is overcoming incongruence. What I'm offering, is it worth it? FAQs, and getting you on your way. I love a good sales presentation where I learn all about the product the person is selling, but I know nothing about how to solve my problem. That's not what we're doing here today. So you should be able to walk away with some practical things that are going to move you forward in your journey, whether you decide to work with me or not. The American dream is to get an education, get a great paying job, get married, have kids, save for retirement, and that's going to make us happy. Well, we've done those things and we've reached this point in our life where we're noticing that we are not present in anything that we are doing. We're finding fleeting moments of happiness, fleeting moments of joy, but our head is always somewhere else, either in the past, in the future, worrying, ruminating, and we're wondering, why are other people able to have fun and I'm just stressed all the time? So we feel like we've done everything right, we followed the program, but it also feels like we're waiting to live until later. And we know that each day is precious, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like life is kind of passing us by, and we'll have more money someday, we'll have more time someday. Our kids will grow up and they'll get out of this annoying stage that they're in and they'll argue with us less, and then we'll really enjoy spending time with them. You don't know exactly what's wrong, and you don't know what to change because of that. My perception about my life was that I had done everything right. I went against my dad's advice and went to college. I was the first in my family to go to college. I earned a graduate degree, an MBA. And society had told me that education would lead me to wealth, financial wealth. I also married well and had kids. Married well meaning I married into a family that seemed like they had a lot less trauma and they were financially stable. I climbed the corporate ladder. I ended up in the C-suite after a very short time. I had one corporate job. I was pregnant my senior year of college for my bachelor's degree, and I thought I was going to go work for a Big Four accounting firm, and that wasn't going to happen anymore because I decided that I wanted to actually know my daughter and not have somebody else raise her. So I went straight into private. Turns out that's actually the easier route. But after climbing the corporate ladder, I worked in corporate for about 7 years. I decided to start my own accounting firm, and the entrepreneurial journey is quite the doozy. So I burnt out. I realized that I did all of that to prove my worth to other people, not because it was something that I actually wanted. So I started studying spirituality to understand what was going on. At some point in my teen years, I had decided to become an atheist because I was raised in a very conservative Christian religion called Jehovah's Witnesses, and that really just didn't resonate with me. It also taught me to have really low self-worth, that as a woman I was to be basically my husband's property and always defer to him for any kind of knowledge or insight or intelligence. I decided at this point in my life that it wasn't God's fault and that I needed some kind of other guidance in my life. I was still chasing money at this point, thinking that that was going to settle me. Oh, if I have more money, I'll have more time, and then I'll have more space to, and it really just didn't matter. The numbers kept increasing, but my presence of mind was not changing. I was remaining stressed, and I joined some coaching programs, and in one of them it included group coaching. When we were all sharing, I realized that we're all in the same boat. I would call it the shame boat, and we need some change. So I received my college credentials. I have a bachelor's, I have a master's, I have some certificates in change management and Six Sigma Black Belt, among others. In the C-suite as a senior manager on executive team at a $187 million company and a $70 million company before I started my accounting firm. But I have changed my life. I understand the tools. I've worked with exceptional coaches, and I am currently living transformation, really enjoying it. Life is a lot better. I actually find myself in the moment so much more of the time. Passionate about helping people find the fast track. It's available to you. You're worth it. On my entrepreneurial journey, I met this wonderful woman named Robbie Motter, and she is the founder of Global Society of Female Entrepreneurs. I met her through networking in trying to grow my accounting business, and she convinced me to contribute to this book. This book has received a lot of positive feedback. It's All About Showing Up. The Power is in the Asking. And I have seen with women, we often have a lot of difficulty asking for what we want. We feel a lot of shame for wanting anything at all, especially if we've grown up in a conservative Christian home. Robbie featured me on her podcast, Diva Strategies for Success, encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone in so many ways. I've also been featured on Roger Connect's podcast, Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I met Roger at an accounting conference in San Diego where I spoke on a panel. This was the conference Accounting Web Summit. I spoke about falling in love with your practice again in 3 easy steps. At that time, I was still trying to fall in love with my accounting practice. At this point, I have moved on from that. I was invited to speak at that conference by writing articles for Accounting Web newsletter. One of my coaches introduced me to them. I wrote 3 different articles for them. They've all since been censored and taken down because I talked about how viruses behave in one of my articles during the pandemic. I took virology in college, so I was just giving an overview about how a lot of what we were hearing in the media wasn't actually how viruses work. At the time, she sent me this email saying, "Hey Rihanna, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to let you know that the article you last wrote for us was super popular and well received. In fact, it was the lead story in our newsletter that week, and that newsletter had our highest rate of engagement ever." This was the deputy editor of Accounting Web newsletter, and I'm showing this instead of my articles because, like I said, my articles were taken down. I spoke the truth even though it was unpopular at the time. I went with my gut and my inner guidance, and so often we think that if we do something that's going to rock the boat, it's not going to be well received, and this clearly shows that when we are true to ourselves and we follow our true north, we will be well received. While the articles were taken down, I still reached the people that I needed to reach at that time. I wanted to share what I was learning with more people, so I started the Wandering Podcast. This podcast, generally I interview people. We cover many topics such as shame, spirituality, trauma. We talk about all the things you're not supposed to talk about. This was me in March of 2023. I was well on my way in my spiritual journey. As you can see, I was connecting with my emotions for once. In 2020, I was miserable and burnt out. By 2023, I think I was actually 50 pounds overweight. I was still binging on wine and Netflix every single night. My marriage was empty and lonely. We watched separate televisions and only talked about what was for dinner and what time soccer games were going to be. I felt like a terrible mother. I felt like a fraud as an accounting owner, also known as imposter syndrome. I was advising people on finances, but I was never getting to the point where we were discussing why their finances were so confusing and difficult for them, and that really didn't feel aligned. Just looking at their P&L and saying, does this make sense or not make sense, was extremely boring. I had low self-esteem, high stress, low libido, poor sleep. I was waking up at 3 a.m. every morning with ruminating thoughts about all the ways that I said the wrong thing, did the wrong thing, spent the wrong money on the wrong thing. Everything was critical. My business was stagnating. Because I didn't feel alignment with what I was doing, I wasn't growing it. It didn't feel right to bring on more clients when I barely wanted to serve the clients that I had. I was doing my spiritual journey alone. In January, I found a community of like-minded people, joined another coaching program, and this was kind of the turning point. I have spent 4 years and over $57,000 trying to get to a place basically of inner peace and enjoying my moments. As I said before, it doesn't need to take 4 years. It doesn't need to be hard. It's available. You're worth it. Part of the reason it was so hard for me was because I was so ashamed that I was hiding behind my computer, ingesting all this information from books and teachers, but not really talking about how I was feeling and getting feedback and accountability. Therapy, of course, is always available. Therapy is a pretty strictly regulated field, so the option is basically to talk through what you're feeling. I needed more than that. I had some complex trauma, and just talking about it wasn't going to be enough. I had a lot of the pieces in place, but I needed to move some trauma out of my body. Trauma settles in our tissues, and when we're just talking, it doesn't move it. That brings me to how Align and Prosper is different. We use more than just talk therapy. We are doing physical exercise with intention. We have meditation. We do journaling. We understand that our beings are whole beings. We cannot fragment ourselves. Our mind is not disconnected from our body. Our emotions are not a separate thing that are to be controlled and shamed. So I've gone through the healing myself. I've gone through the training. I'm having amazing life experiences. This year I have taken more trips and traveled to more places than I ever have. I am in touch with myself, my desires. I'm not ashamed of my desires. I can hear my intuition, so I can follow the nudges that it gives me. I know the difference between my intuition and the fear that comes into my mind. I am designing my own life on my terms. Friends and family are asking how I'm doing it, and because it's not a quick fix, they're not happy with my answer. This takes work. This takes feeling uncomfortable feelings and revisiting things that cause us to feel a lot of shame. It is simple, but it isn't easy. The picture on the left was in October. I was in Hawaii, and that's about where I was in March. I may have lost 10 pounds by the time I hit March, but over the next 2 months, I went from this to this. This was March, this was May of 2023. Following traditional diet and exercise techniques is not what created this. I didn't really change my caloric intake much at all. I didn't increase my exercise. The one thing I did do was to stop following fad diets like keto and low carb and intermittent fasting, and I started actually listening to my body because I was now in touch with my body and I could hear it and feel it. And by eating intuitively instead of by following the advice of somebody out there and releasing a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of weight came off. And it's very common to have major body transformations when you're having a spiritual awakening because of that release of emotion that creates a lot of weight. In many ways, we are insulating ourselves against pain when we're putting on weight, and when we are able to feel safe with ourselves and build trust with ourselves, we can shed that weight. Having my own accounting business financially was way better than having a job. If you are considering becoming an entrepreneur, if you are working in an aligned field and you're willing to do what it takes, you will definitely make more money as an entrepreneur than as a W-2 employee. However, accounting is no longer aligned with me. I am much more interested in teaching people what I know, sharing my experiences about how to live a whole, enjoyable life rather than reading numbers on a page to people. So there was a point where I was working about 15 minutes a day. I'm still there, but I'm in the process of selling it. I gave marriage a good go. We were together for 16 years. We were married for 9. I kept trying to make it work. And then one day I was looking at my kids and my husband, and I realized my kids think that this is how this is supposed to be. We don't even speak to each other. We don't give any affection. I want my kids to have happy marriages. I don't want them to believe that marriage is celibacy and isolation and loneliness. So I needed to set a better example for them. I needed to release myself and my ex-husband from this basically comfort zone rut that we were in, that we thought was the right thing because we had signed some contract, but nobody was happy. So I had to make that choice. Hard decision, a lot of hard work, but we've done our divorce out of court. We're successfully co-parenting. We understand that the kids are the priority here, and keeping their lives as stable as possible is more important than getting back at each other for whatever ways we've hurt each other's feelings in the past. I'm now coaching people I love working with. They're all over the world. I'm writing poetry and music. I'm traveling. Different opportunities for collaboration with people who are aligned with my energy and my belief systems are popping up all the time. I'm also enjoying spending time with people who don't align with my belief systems and learning a lot, which is equally fun. But those conversations are mature adult conversations where we get to express our opinions without attacking each other. Testimonials. I'm not very good at asking for testimonials, honestly, but this is my friend Chris, who has taken my course. She feels that this is the most important path of her life, and I'm an important piece on her journey. She's learning to prioritize and love herself. We're working together. We're bringing people together in meditation, in hiking. We are establishing a new way of living. Often all there is to do here is go to restaurants and bars, so we're looking to find a place or establish a place where there's more things like ecstatic dance. Step 1, identifying our story. Our stories are how we make sense of the world, and in many cases we've been telling ourselves the same old story, and it's a sad story, for many, many years, and we can change our story at any time. It doesn't mean getting out of touch with reality. Attitude has so much to do with everything. So part of our stories are, what have you done right? You know, have you followed your family's advice? Have you followed society's advice? What is not quite right yet? What's bringing dissatisfaction? Is money tight? Are you feeling lonely in your relationships? Are you not taking time off? Are you a workaholic? Are you feeling like all people want to do is have small talk, and so you're not really connected? Do you have the constant nudge to make something creative or follow one of your creative outlets, and you just don't have the time? You feel like that can't be a priority. What do you believe is right? Often we haven't changed our beliefs since childhood. We just took on what our parents said to be right. Although as young children we may have questioned those beliefs and probably been punished for questioning them. So we want to get back in touch with what our original beliefs may have been and kind of blend what we've learned and what we knew then together to see what our personal beliefs are, because something feels wrong right now, and that's how we're going to find out what it is. To make information more digestible, our education system has separated the mind and the body and how they work, but our mind is within our body, so they are working together, and when we try to compartmentalize them, it creates a lot of incongruence in our lives. If I say to you, what is wrong with you? Or you ask yourself that question, seriously ask it and notice how your body responds. I'm going to give you a second to kind of feel your body. And if you're feeling nothing, say it again. What I notice in my body is some tension in my shoulders, a contraction in my belly, maybe some heat rushing through my body, because I know that there's nothing wrong with me. My inner being can tell me there's nothing wrong with me, and so I automatically have this rebellion response. Our bodies are giving us so much information, and often what's going on in our subconscious mind is running the show in our lives. We have an old tape that keeps running and running and running. We probably had maybe one, maybe many experiences with a caregiver telling us that something we were doing was bad or wrong. Say we talked about how it felt when we touched our body and they were like, no, you shouldn't be talking about that at the dinner table. Or we don't touch our bodies. We reserve our bodies for our spouse when we grow up. Or say we were too loud or too excited and somebody shamed us for our excitement or how loud we were. Children are basically in a state of hypnosis from ages of birth to 7 years old. So we can take one experience like that and create a story, and that story will tell us that we're bad, and we keep running that tape for the rest of our lives, and it actually controls our behavior. So incongruence, often we are in social situations and we are expected to behave a certain way, but our body is telling us to get out of there. So we'll paste a smile on our face. Really what we're feeling is very uncomfortable. And incongruence between our mind and body creates incongruent behavior. Often we think because we're smiling or because we're saying the right words, people aren't picking up on our body language, our tone of voice, our energy. All of these things can be seen by the person who is in front of you. They may be not seen visually, but they are picked up. It creates mistrust in our relationships. We know when we're being lied to. So in our career, with our lover, with our kids, so many times we think we're not allowed to say what's true, and often it's the way that we would say it that really wouldn't be allowed. But telling the truth eases so much tension and releases so much resistance if we can say it in a way that isn't confrontational or violent. Overcoming incongruence would result in our actions and circumstances mirroring our desires. So getting in touch with our desires, not feeling embarrassed and ashamed of them, and going ahead and living them out. I want to talk about desire for a minute. Many people would say that an addictive behavior is a desire. Desire is something that feels great and feels natural and doesn't have negative side effects or a come down. Most of us don't actually have the desire to watch TV all day and binge. The real desire that we have is to rest. And so we're getting in touch with what is the real desire. What am I actually trying to get? What is my body telling me I need? It's usually rest, play, fulfillment, connection, belonging, love. When we get in touch with our true desires, it leads to a fulfilling, peaceful, joyful life that is far less stressful. And we have it backward. So we look at, is this my mold, my life that I'm living? Or is it somebody else's mold? Did somebody else design this for me? Did somebody tell me what I should believe and want as a child, and so I abandoned what I actually believed and wanted? to follow that good advice. The thing about good advice is that it's really just repeated advice. Generation after generation, our parents are told what to do by their parents, they were told what to do by their parents, and everybody's just trying to keep us safe and alive, and we often believe that doing anything outside of the box or anything new is going to lead to certain failure and suffering and death. We think repetition is safety. I'm not talking about basic survival skills. It's wonderful that our parents taught us that eating and cleaning ourselves and sleeping is healthy for us. Obviously, that's true. However, if your parents told you that getting a corporate job and sitting in traffic for 3 hours a day so that you can come home and just fall asleep and repeat it the next day, if they believed that that was going to be a fulfilling life for you because you have this certain brand of car, many of us feel like we have to fake it through the day to fit in. Our actions and circumstances are not mirroring our desires. We're just trying to make ourselves fit into that mold that was designed for us instead of creating our own lives. We're seeing more and more people deciding not to do home ownership or car ownership because there's rideshare. Life is changing. Many people have a lot of judgment about that. They feel that it's not wise, and that's really just their programming talking. It's okay for people to do things a little differently. It probably won't mean the end of the world. Right now I'm addressing subconscious alarm bells. People say, I'm stuck in my life. I've worked so hard for it. I've spent so many years chasing after this goal that I really thought I wanted, and I have been through the grief of letting that go, and I understand it, and it's very important to feel that grief and to not be afraid of grief. We all think that we're supposed to look like people on commercials who are just sunny and happy and having a wonderful time all the time. That isn't life, and we are here to feel all of life, to feel all of our emotions, to learn and to experience. You may be saying, my desires are ridiculous. I want to be a painter or an athlete, and I'm 40, and it's too late. Following our desires doesn't mean blowing up our life. We can do that incrementally, a little bit at a time, to get to a point where we can support ourselves in the field that feels the most aligned. And it may not be the original, it may not look like what we saw as a child, but we find the activities that we feel really good about doing each day, that we're excited to wake up and go do. And it's true that our desires will change over time. We'll achieve some things and then we'll find out, oh, that wasn't quite what I thought it would be, and we'll change. And that's absolutely acceptable as well. The old idea of having a job at one place for 30 years and then retiring with a pension isn't really happening anymore. It's pretty rare. Maybe thinking, what will people think? I'll be abandoned, ridiculed, humiliated by my friends and family. You may be. You may find out that those friends and family aren't actually your soul family and soul friends. And that would be why you are so uncomfortable and you feel so lonely when you're around them. And this can be really tough. And if people are humiliating and ridiculing you, do we want those relationships? Some of your friends and family have been very much aligned with you all along, and they will be with you on this journey. They will not be threatened by your growth. They will appreciate and love you more. You'll get more time together and it'll feel more connected, and you'll feel revitalized, rejuvenated after those experiences. We thought we were supposed to keep up with the Joneses and fit in, and then that would make us safe and happy. Chasing houses and cars and boats, well, how you feeling? Do you actually feel safe, or do you wake up in the middle of the night fearing the next big disaster? In many ways, we're not safe. Overall, most of us, pretty safe where we're at. Like, I'm alive, I'm breathing, nothing's happening. I don't need to catastrophize my life right now. But in many cases, we're overweight, we're over-consuming. We're stressed. We have dis-ease. We have lack of intimacy and connection in all of our relationships, not just through sex, but sex is a big one. So many people are not enjoying sex because they're so self-conscious about their bodies and their desires, and they're afraid to upset their partner, and so they feel like they can't have a conversation and talk about what they actually want, and in some cases their partner will shame them and make them feel ridiculous or inadequate, and that really just comes from a place of wounding. So if both partners could heal and feel connected to their own desires and not feel ashamed of themselves, they're a lot more likely to be able to actually enjoy sex and enjoy all the other types of relationships they have in their lives. We have collective incongruence. Especially in Western culture, people are not living aligned with what they really want, and they're afraid to talk about it. And so they're not happy, and they're just suffering in silence, and it's causing a lot of destruction in the world. This says we have two options: the hard way, going it alone, which I did try for a good 4 years. Option 2, the easy way to go at it together. There is a third option. You can do nothing at all, and you can just turn this off and get back to your routine and hope that that feels better someday. Hope that the next outside circumstance is going to solve your problem. You're going to get a raise, you're going to go on vacation, your kids are going to grow out of that stage. So you're waiting. Option 2 is the easiest option. I know because I've done this. I have a 6-week course called Calm Your Inner Critic. In the course, we use the Align framework. We acknowledge, which is accept that things are not working. We actually admit that to ourselves. And we examine the tendencies that no longer work. Part of this stage is accepting the fact that all the good advice that we've received is the problem. We liberate ourselves from unconscious patterns by examining their root causes. That's the inner work. We integrate. We bring awareness to our daily habits in order to form new habits that produce the results we desire. We guide our relationships to better connection through honest, supportive conversations. This can be very scary. It was very scary for me. Having boundaries and open communication makes us feel afraid that we're going to be rejected and abandoned. Again, if we are rejected and abandoned, that's great information, because those are not the types of relationships that we want to be in. Nourish. We bring nourishment to daily life through enjoyable movement, reading, listening, art, sports, the things that light us up. We make sure that becomes part of every single day. We don't skip ourselves and our desires to do the task list. That task list is not going to end. We have to prioritize ourselves in order to have the energy to do that task list, and often we're going to find that there's a lot of stuff we can take off of it. What does not taking action cost? As I've said, I've spent over $57,000 in the last 4 years. I know people who have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. So all of these things all these tools that I use are guidance. They're different forms of guidance. Taking my course just condenses that guidance down into 6 weeks, and it really just gets to the root causes of things. We go straight to the bottom, which sounds like a lot of fun, right? But it does save you some time. There are 3 levels to choose from in this course. The Explorer option is $444. It's a nice low commitment investment. You're still going to get to the root causes of things, but you may be a person who's not ready for community and wants to just feel out what this is all about and what the point of it is. Guided meditations are great. A lot of people are intimidated by meditation. They've tried it and they can't silence their mind, and so they start telling themselves they're doing it wrong. It's a practice. If we're quitting because we're feeling ashamed that we're doing it wrong, we're not getting the right guidance. Your mind does not have to be silent the whole time. Most likely it won't be. The idea is to notice that, to not judge it, and just to bring the focus back to the body, to breathing, whatever it is you want to focus on. But it's just the practice of noticing and returning, noticing and returning. And over time, you'll create more space in your mind to just let your mind rest so that it's not racing all the time. And there's more to it than that. You can take it as far as you want to go. But when you're starting out, that's the basic. Next level is Sage. It's $888. It includes everything in Explorer, and it includes community. The course is in an app for all levels, and there is progress tracking for some of the activities that we do. This also includes a 60-minute one-on-one coaching call with me. In that call, we get to know what your true desires are and start to design a life around those. The Pioneer level is going to be the most effective. It's $3,333. It includes all of the Explorer and Sage features. It also includes 6 weekly 90-minute live coaching calls, and these are group coaching calls. And as scary as that may sound, it's actually really helpful because you get to start building your own community with the people that are like-minded that you'll meet here. So what to expect in the program is a lecture per week in video audio format. You can watch the videos, or if you prefer to do things while some of us are active learners, and we've been taught that that's not okay. So if you want to work out or do other things while you're listening, the audio is available for that. Daily movement recommendations. These are not huge commitments. 15 minutes a day minimum with setting an intention. It helps create new neural pathways in the brain. With book recommendations, and then on the higher levels, progress tracking, community, group coaching. All of the levels have journal prompts, and all of the levels have lifetime access to the course for self-paced learning in case you don't want to do it in 6 weeks or you want to revisit anything. The 1-hour call in the Sage level is going to provide you with some clarity, but the transformation happens when we invest in ourselves and get out of our comfort zones. If you have selected the Pioneer level and you need financing, you can schedule a discovery call. We will figure out where you are, where you want to be, and what needs to happen for you to get there. Then toward the end, one of the number one ways we move the needle is by seeing if you're a good fit for the Pioneer level. In many cases, we can tell after that conversation whether you're really ready to take action or if you want to start somewhere else. At the end of the call, you may or may not be invited to join the program, depending on how the call goes. This is because I don't want to process refunds. I want to make sure you're doing this and it's aligned with your goals. The time commitment for the Pioneer level course, it's going to be about 2.5 hours a week because of the 90-minute group coaching calls. The Sage and Explorer will be about an hour a week. And instead of telling yourself you don't have time because you're already stretched too thin, ask yourself, how can I find an hour a week to invest in myself? I did not have time. I made time. I was running a business. An accounting business is a pretty demanding business. I had 2 young children. I was doing the vast majority of what it takes to run the household and being the breadwinner. How much of your potential will remain unmet if you keep going down the current path? Would I go back to my life the way it was before I did this? Definitely not. Affordability. As you saw, the Explorer course is not really a huge investment, $444. Pretty standard for an online course. The Sage level at $888, also not a huge investment. The $33.33 may be a little more of a stretch. Think about do we currently spend money on things that we don't use or on destructive behaviors? Do you have a gym membership you're not using? Do you have a lot of supplements that you don't take? Really healthy food that just doesn't look good and you don't eat it and you end up throwing it out, or it sits in your cupboard for months or years? Do you have a wine habit? Do you have a drug habit? A prescription drug habit? A compulsive shopping habit? For the Pioneer level of the course, you do not have to pay the $33.33 in full upfront. We have financing options. You can start with 0 down and low monthly payments. The other 2 are not expensive enough for financing. Will I lose relationships? It's possible that you won't lose any relationships. You're likely going to become a better communicator. You're going to be able to set boundaries, which will result in less resentment toward the people in your lives. And there may be some unhealthy relationships that do need to end. And I bet you can think of some right off the top of your head that are very toxic, where your conversations keep going round and round in circles and you never get anywhere. Communication may solve that. It may not. What if you get to build more fulfilling relationships with like-minded people? You start finding your tribe. What if people honor your boundaries? What if your kids saw you living an inspired life? What would be possible for them? Why doesn't everybody do this? Why isn't everybody living a fulfilled life? A lot of people are really afraid to do their inner work. You see those really happy people on Instagram who have lots of money and they're going on vacation. If that's really what their life looks like, it's because they've done their inner work. It's because they are now making aligned choices and they can actually enjoy all that they have rather than feeling like they need to chase the next thing. It is simple and it's possible. It is not easy. It requires commitment and resilience, and it requires a belief that you're worthy, that you're truly worthy of happiness. That's probably the one thing that really stops people. They don't realize what low self-worth they have. They believe the story that everyone around them is telling them, that this is just how it is. This is just life. If you're telling yourself that you have to endure life or that it's just going to be boring and unpleasant, then you probably have some low self-worth. Another subconscious fear is, what if I meet my potential? What will that mean? That sounds like expansion, the unknown. It could mean more responsibility. The last thing I want right now, if I'm burnt out or tired, is more responsibility. Will I make a ton of money and lose it? Will I become a jerk if I'm truly wealthy? Will people try to take advantage of me? Will I have more responsibility than I can handle? Many of those fears have to do with false beliefs about money, and there are practical ways of improving your relationship with money. When we see it as a tool and stop believing that it's good or evil, we don't have to chase it away. There are many rich people who are generous and benevolent. There are many poor people who are generous and benevolent. Money doesn't make you, you make money. This one addresses relationships. Are they going to end? Some may. You'll have the ability and self-worth to set boundaries and recognize toxic behavior in yourself and others. We're cultivating your desires. You are always in charge of what you are doing and what you are delegating to others. The inability to delegate often goes back to low self-worth. There are people who actually enjoy doing the things that we do not enjoy doing. That is one of the wonderful things about sharing our lives with other people. If you want results, commitment is key. I am not here to convince you that something needs to change. I am here to guide you through change. If you don't know that something needs to change, then you're not ready. If you are booking a call, please be on time and open to possibilities. Put yourself first. Make sure you can concentrate and that you don't have distractions happening. We can actually energetically call in distractions to avoid our expansion when we're afraid of our own expansion. To wrap up, be prepared for the call if you're scheduling one. Be committed to your transformation. Remember that discomfort is where growth happens and you are worth it. And if you don't believe you're worth it, that is something that we address in this course. Links are below to schedule your call or purchase one of the other levels of the course. I look forward to getting to know you and working with you.